saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. I see, I see. I see, I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to feel, and grace my fears relieve. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed.
Everyone is but a breath, even those who seem secure. Surely everyone goes around like a mere phantom. In vain they rush about, heaping up wealth, without knowing whose it will finally be. But now, Lord, what do I look for? My hope is in you. Blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. They will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its roots by the stream.
Good evening. We're
evening.
delighted that you're here. My name's Andy. I'm a fourth year medical student.
Perfect. And my name's Elizabeth. I'm also a fourth year medical student.
And we're your hosts for this year's Events Week.
Woo! But Andy, what is Events Week?
Events Week is a series of talks running throughout this week, with talks at lunch, dinner time, and in the evenings. We think it's wonderful to explore who Jesus is and the claims he made. So we hope that this is a time where you can do that.
We're so grateful that you guys came this evening. And just so you're aware of how this evening will run, it's meant to go on until around 9:15. And it will consist of a short quiz, which hopefully you'll see in your table and I'll come back to in a second, followed by a quick break where you can fill up on more ice cream if you haven't got enough already. And then we'll have the incredible opportunity to hear both from Olympian gold medalist herself, Debbie Flood, and also an incredible talk about whether ambition can fulfill our life goals.
And a couple other practical things. We've got fire exits to the right and through the door you came in. And there's some toilets at the back at the left. If at any moment you feel like you need to take a minute out, please do feel free just to do that.
Great. So yes, back to that quiz I mentioned. So to get us in the mood of the whole sports evening, you've got 5 questions on your tables, which you have had the chance to start filling in as you arrived. And if you haven't been doing that, you've got about approximately 30 seconds to give all the answers. So you better get going. I did not expect the intro to be...
Sorry. That's fine. I think this is about enough time. Okay, and that is enough time for that. So we're going to be going through the questions now. Okay, so question 1. The answer is Athens in Greece.
Yep, and moving straight on to question 2. Of course, the boat race winner was going to be Cambridge. A whole 87 races, so good job from us.
And question 3. Team GEB in 2012 won 65 medals. And a bonus point if anybody managed to guess that they won 29 gold medals.
Very impressive from us. And on to question 4. Who has won the most Olympic judo medals? It is, in fact, Japan. So good job to those who got that one.
And question 5. Who has won the most gold medals out of all the GB athletes? That is Sir Jason Kenny with 7 gold medals and 9 medals in total. You may have spotted if you got 5 out of 5 and you may be hoping that we could offer you bragging rights and eternal glory. Turns out our bosses say we can't offer that, but you can have all the bragging rights in the world.
Great. So we'll now take that quick 5-minute break before we invite Debbie Flood herself up for an interview.
Hello. Sorry to put an end to those conversations. We now have the absolute privilege of being able to hear from Debbie Flood. She's a two-time Olympic silver medalist. So, Debbie, what is it like to be an Olympian?
That is a big question. And just a caveat, I am from Yorkshire. I could talk for hours and hours. I will try not to. That is a big question to start with. But I guess just to set the scene a little bit, you know, when you get to the Olympics, you've got an Olympic village, you've got 10,000, 11,000 athletes. And so you walk into this village and you've been given all the stash, loads and loads and loads of kit. Everything is in your country's colours. And you walk in, you've done all these years of training, you're ready for your main event, you know, the top of the sport in your country, and you walk in and there's like 10, 11,000 athletes in their country kit, the best in the world, the best in their country, in their sport. That is pretty humbling. I mean, you go and you're like super proud of wearing your country's colours, you're going out to represent, but you're also around these thousands of athletes who have also trained for years and years, you know, through the highs and the lows, they're competing. So it's an incredible, like it's such a big like event. It's for us in rowing, it's obviously the highlight of our rowing calendar. It's the pinnacle of our particular sport. And you know, imagine the biggest Tesco's or supermarket you've ever been into. Okay, times that size by 2. That's how big our dining room is. Okay, so it's huge. I mean, it's a huge, huge event. And I guess when you watch the Olympics on television, you'll see the race, and you'll see athletes competing. You'll see them finishing, or whatever the result might be. You'll see the elation for those who have won, and you'll see, you know, the disappointment and tears for those that have not done as well as they've wanted. And you'll see that, you'll engage with that for a bit, but what you don't see, I guess, is the years and years and the hours and hours and the ups and downs that have gone on behind all of that, like for each of those individual lives. And so I guess, what is it like being an Olympian? It's a lot of hard work, a lot of joys, a lot of laughs, a lot of just focusing on goals, like getting stuck in. I trained and competed for GB for 15 years. So over that time, we had obviously our Olympic cycles. And over those 15 years, you train 2 or 3 times every day. You get half days off, or you get a day off after you've competed, or when you're traveling. So, you know, you train in, obviously, as rowing in all weathers, in the wind, in the rain, in the hail. There's days where you wake up and you're like, nah, I don't want to get out of bed this morning. But you do, you know, you get out and you go because you know every training session counts. And even within the year, you're competing against each other. You're competing against your teammates through the year for places. And so it's one of those dynamics where that's actually quite crucial to your team. Like, how do you do that? How do you compete day on, day out, being watched, being timed, being videoed, everything being analysed, but yet you're trying to also, within that time, beat your teammates. But then at the end of the day, you're coming together to represent them. So there's like so much in terms of the training, the friendships, the ups and downs, the racing. Like, I could talk for hours about it, but...
Yeah, briefly, what is the feeling like crossing that line, knowing that you've won an Olympic medal?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool, but I guess I've had different experiences. So in Athens, that was my first competitive game. So I was actually a reserve in Sydney. For the team, I didn't get to race, but I went out as a racing spare. A spare's not a very nice way of putting it, is it? But you know, that was my first experience of the Olympics. But actual racing was Athens, and I was in a quad, so I was with 3 other girls. And at that point, I had been training since '98, so that was 6 years. So 6 years training, pretty much full time for that one race, that one 6 minutes, like one chance to get it right. And the 3 girls that I was rowing with, out of the 4 of us, none of us had ever won a world championship medal. So if it's not Olympic year, we would have like a world championship year. And we'd not won medals yet in that category. We were right up there. We were right up there on the world levels, but we'd not won a major medal before. So there wasn't, you know, huge expectations on us, but we had expectations of ourselves. We knew that we were up there with a chance, and winning that silver medal, we came second to the German team, and at that point, the Germans had never ever lost that event in the history of the Olympic Games, and they were the top in the world, and so we came second behind them, and it was incredible. It was the most amazing experience. Those three are still three of my best mates now. Like I say, you travel the ups and downs together before that point. We finished, and actually the security in Athens was like really bad. So like all our mates that had come to watch, they jumped the barriers, they swam out, they gave us flags, like they had this silly hat and an umbrella, all sorts of stuff. We had the press got some very random photos of our boat with our friends like hanging off the side of the boat, and then they got all shimmied away. But you finish, and then you go straight to the press pontoon. So they're like trying to interview you. You've got no breath. You've got no energy left. You've just spent everything that you have in this race. And so, I can't even understand what I was saying if I look back on it. We were so excited. And then you go from there to the medal pontoon. And you stand there as a crew. You don't really even say anything to each other because you don't have to. You know how much you've all put into that. You know what it's meant to you. You just stand there with your arms around each other, and you get presented your medals and the flowers. And in Athens, we got the olive wreaths that went round our head, which was really cool. And so it was just an absolutely incredible moment. And do you know what? Brits are the best supporters. I mean, we looked out on the crowd, and you could just see a sea of like British flags. It is so cool. And again, with the racing, there's like 30,000, 40,000 people watching. So the noise in that last bit of the race it's like nothing we would experience at the World Championships. Like the World Championships are really important. Lots of people do come and watch. But the Olympics it's another level because it's right in the media. There's lots of pressure in one way because everyone's like, you can do it. We know you can do it. And that's amazing and encouraging. But it's also like a huge pressure.
Yeah. And you had that opportunity to cross the line twice.
Yeah.
And win 2 medals.
Yeah. I would just say, though, the second time was very different.
Okay.
So that first time, it was incredible, but we'd won that silver medal. So then we were like, right, 4 years later, we want to go for that gold. And that's all we're aiming for. And so in that 4 years, it was like gold medal standard of everything. It was like gold medal standard training, gold medal standard sleeping, gold medal standard eating. Just everything was that. I guess that was just the essence of what we were trying to do in every single day, that mantra of gold medal standard. And we went into the Olympics in Beijing as one of the favourites. I wasn't in the boat the first year because I was finishing off my uni degree, but the other 2 years we were world champions, and so that boat from Great Britain had been world champion for 3 years in the run-up to the Olympics in Beijing. So great expectation on us, great pressure on ourselves. We really expected to win that gold medal. And we ended up leading that race for 6 minutes out of the 6 minutes and 17 seconds. And in those final stages, just got overtaken by the Chinese crew on their home turf. And so we crossed that line. And, you don't give up until you cross the line. It doesn't matter if someone's overtaken you. You train it's not over until that beeper goes. And the beepers went, and we just knew, and we were gutted. Like, no words could console us in that moment. Like, our interview at that point, we were just all crying. I remember I've got this experience where I was, we got our medals and things, I was trying to get to the stands where my parents were. And I was crying so much I could hardly see. Well, like one of the other girls had to like lead me, like as if I was a blind person, like because I genuinely. But then someone would come up to me and want a picture. So then I'd be like, there'd be a pause. I'd be able to stop crying. I'd kind of smile, have a picture taken, and then they'd move away, and then I'd pour out crying. It was just such a very, very different experience. Very different experience.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear about. You're a Christian, Debbie. How has being a Christian impacted your life as a rower?
Yeah, well, I feel really fortunate that I became a Christian actually when I was 15, just before going into that crazy world of full-time and elite sport. So I could take you back to the beginning, I guess a bit. I grew up in a very sporty family. Like my dad ran marathons all the time. My mum was really sporty. Sport was always part of my life. It was also a Christian family, so going to church on Sundays was also part of my life. And if you'd have asked me when I was a youngster, do you believe in God? Are you a Christian? I would have said, yes, I was a Christian, because I thought it was just automatic, because I went to church on Sundays, because my family were Christians, like my grandparents were missionaries in Liberia. And so I would just thought it was automatic that I was a Christian. But if you'd have asked me about, if you just pushed me further and said, well, so you believe in God, I would have said genuinely yes. I think growing up as a youngster, I couldn't believe that we were just a bag of chemicals and that life had no meaning or purpose. Like I knew, life does have meaning, doesn't it? It's precious. That's why we're joyful when a baby is born. My baby 8 months ago, my little one, and we're joyful, and it's why we're sad when people pass away, because life is precious, life is important. And so for me, like I knew, I resonated with there being a God, and also resonated with the fact that God gives us abilities and giftings and purpose. And for me, I was like, that's sport. It's a longer story than I've got time for, but I was like, sport saved me from very different lifestyle. Like I was really quite naughty as a child, like I was in the police station by the time I was 7, lots of things there. But I think sport really gave me a focus, and I saw it as a real gift from God. But then I started going to youth club when I was 15 at church, and I started to listen. I think that was the first point I started to really listen, and started to hear about who Jesus was and the life he lived and why he died. And I suddenly realized that, yes, God gives us life and it's precious. Yes, God gives us gifts and abilities, but actually first and foremost he wants a relationship with us, and that was something for us to accept and choose. And so at that point I suddenly realized I don't have that and I want that. And so I would say that was the point in my 15-year-old way that I gave my life to Jesus and became a Christian. But that was just the starting point. And I'm grateful that was the starting point, because then very soon after that, when I was 17, I started rowing and I went into that world of a full-on, intensive sport. And I guess I saw it even at that point in my kind of young Christian life. I saw it as a real gift from God, something to work hard in, an ability that he'd given me that I didn't want to waste. I wanted to make the most of it. And that was, for me, as I look back, because it's often when we reflect and look back, isn't it? I think that really helped me to have it in the right perspective. But it was hard. Like, I feel like God grew me in my faith, and as a person through my journey through rowing. So, for example, in sport, it's really easy for sport to be your everything, your life, your identity. So if a sports person's winning and doing well, you can feel like you're in the right place. You can feel like you have worth and value. You can feel like, you're doing great. Everything is good. But then if you're not doing well, you can feel like you have no value. You have no purpose. Like you must be in the wrong place. But if we think about it logically, it doesn't make sense, does it? You can see how that happens, and you can probably resonate that maybe with your studies or other aspects of life. But if you put your worth and value in what you do, how well you do it, or in maybe what people say about you, so for us that was the press, our coaches, our teammates, if you put your worth and value in that, it is a super unstable place to be. You can go from hero to zero overnight as an athlete with a misdemeanor in the press or a bad result, and to put your stability of who you are in that is just doesn't make sense. And I think for me, one of the things that faith has helped me with, God has really shown me that every single life is precious because he said so and because he made you. And no matter whether you're messing up, whether you're doing well, whether you're not doing well, like, you are precious, you are loved, your life has worth and value, full stop, regardless. And so I think he taught me that through my rowing, because you go through the ups and downs when you're not doing well. But also as a Christian, I know that more so, even more just than that. I said, just that is amazing. But I'm also now a child of God as a Christian, and that is something that nothing can change. No one can take that away from me. And that, that has been my real anchor and stability in a world that's very unstable with ups and downs. But it's also freed me to just enjoy my sport and not have the pressures of, this is who you are, you have to do this, otherwise you are worthless. And so I mean, there's so much more I can say. Please do come and talk to me afterwards if you've got any questions. But yeah, it's been a real anchor. And yeah, the most important thing and choice that I've ever made. So
Thank you so much for sharing that. Tonight we're pondering the question whether ambition can fulfill us. You're an elite athlete. I'm sure you're ambitious and surrounded by many ambitious people. How would you speak into that question?
yeah, I mean, you only have to look at some of the press and some of the articles and books even that super successful sports people have written and have said, I was so successful, but it wasn't what I thought, or it didn't fulfill me. And, I know many sports people who have, they're hanging on to that, wanting that result, wanting that gold medal. Like one of my really good friends, Rebecca Romero, who was in our Athens squad, she changed sports, went to cycling. She was like, this is going to be it. I'm going to get the gold medal here. It's going to mean everything. And she did that, and she was like, oh, that's great that I won that, but it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And I think that is, what we were made for is a relationship with God. And in that allows us to be free to love our sport. Like, I'm really ambitious. I'm super competitive. Any of my teammates will tell you I'm super competitive. And I love competing, and I love winning stuff. But it's not the be-all and end-all. Like, I'm not going to take my medals to heaven with me when I pass. Like, it's not the most important thing in my life. And ambition is great, but it's got its place, and it's got its healthy place. And for me, that meant continuing to come back to who God says I am, but also be challenged on how I'm doing my sport. How am I being competitive? Am I honouring and loving others and being respectful and doing with that sport what God's given me to do in it? So ambition is great, but it has its place, and it's not the be-all and end-all.
Thank you. And briefly, is there any word you would say if people have walked into church for the first time here? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I'd say well done and great for being here. Like, you're here and you've got questions. Ask the questions, like wrestle with those answers, because if Christianity isn't true, then it's of no significance. But if it is true, it's of every importance that you have that choice to make for yourself. So ask the questions. If you came with someone tonight or if someone invited you, plug them with questions. And if they don't know the answers, they'll find out for you. And just keep asking your questions, because you don't go into something unless you believe it to be true. So search for that truth and ask those questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And you have your Olympic medals?
I do. I've got my Athens silver and my Beijing silver. And also I carried a torch in London. So please do feel free to come and have a look at the end.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, so now we have a talk from Stephen. So who is Stephen?
Yeah, so I can speak loud. Okay. Who is Stephen? So Stephen is currently working at a church in Oxford, but before this, he actually read law at Oxford, after which he worked as a barrister for a few years. But then he eventually came to Cambridge, where he read theology for a few years. And now he's currently married to Beth, and he has 4 daughters. And yeah, it's such a privilege to welcome him to the stage. So before I leave the stage to you, I was just wondering if it'd be okay if I could pray for you quickly.
Yeah, I thought you were going to join me in the talk for a second. No, okay, yeah.
So for people who aren't aware what prayer is a gift that God has so graciously given us to speak to him about, anything that's on our hearts. If it's not something you've come across before, don't worry. It'll basically just involve, me just closing my eyes and praying to Stephen and everyone here very quickly. So, dear God, thank you so much for everyone here. Thank you for this incredible opportunity to learn more about you and learn more about, the purpose of ambition and its role in our lives. I really pray that, Stephen's talk would connect with everyone here this evening, and that something about Jesus would really speak to them. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Is that coming through okay? Thank you so much. It's great to be with you tonight. Thank you for being understanding. I know I come from an inferior city, inferior academic institution. I did spend 4 of my years of my life here studying theology. I used to be regular in the Sidgwick site, and it's a privilege to be back. I want to talk tonight on the title, How to Find Your Worth. I wonder, where do you look to for your sense of value and worth? Where do you look for approval? Whose admiration do you seek? Because where you look to find your self-worth is actually one of the most important things about you. And yet we rarely discuss it. We certainly rarely articulate it, not even to ourselves. And I've looked in different places over the years. I was born and bred in a beautiful town just north of London called Luton. And but it's my hometown. I'm very fond of it. And I went to quite a rough school in Luton, what these days you'd call a failing school, mainly because it failed and they knocked it down, and it's not there anymore. And it was known as the worst school in Luton, which is quite a difficult accolade to achieve, to be honest. And lots of people at my school drew their self-worth from their ability to be violent, and who was the most violent in our school. That wasn't, as you can tell, something I was especially great at. And so I couldn't really look there. So I kind of looked for studying and stuff like that, and had some success in exams and in sport, and started reading law, which I loved, and then started to try and prove myself through academic success and success in sport and all those kind of things. I threw myself into the social scene. Life seemed to be one succession of parties, and that was great fun. And then when I started working as a criminal defense barrister, a barrister who represents people accused of crimes, I tried to build my success. And in a way, you're only as good as your last case. So you're always thinking, what's the next case? How can I be more successful? How can I earn more money? How can I establish more status? And I wonder what your sense of self-worth is founded on tonight. Maybe your achievements, maybe your beauty, maybe your success, maybe your intelligence, maybe your skill at cover drive, maybe your ability to do things better than your friends, maybe that you are a great friend, maybe that everyone's swiping for you on the apps, maybe that you're swiping for everyone else on the apps. But ultimately, it seems that there's only 2 places that you can look to for your sense of self-worth. Firstly, those that are external to you. So if you're looking there, it's how others view you, how society views you, whether you come up to people's expectations, maybe the expectations of your parents or your family, your friends, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, the person you're dating, or the person you would quite like to be dating. And it can be very tempting to reject external sources of wealth because we think, well, that seems a bit limiting. I don't want my sense of self-worth to be based on other people's judgment about me. I don't want society to determine what my value is. And that seems limiting. We don't want to be bound by others' opinions of us. So instead of relying on external sources of value, we rely on internal sources of value. So we look inside ourselves. We decide our value. We decide what we're worth. We decide what's great about us. And there's lots about that that's attractive. It's not dependent on others. You're not vulnerable to changeable opinions, things outside our control. But the difficulty is, even though it sounds better for me to determine my value, we just don't live like that. So just want you to imagine this. You do a piece of work this week. No matter how many times you say, this is the best piece of work that has ever been created in this universe, future generations of students will step back in awe at this essay or this equation, just how brilliant it is. This is the paradigm example of brilliance. No matter how many times you say that, that's not what you actually believe. What you want to know is, what does my lecturer think about this? What does my tutor think? What mark am I going to get? Am I going to get a 69 or a 70, or others of you, a 59 or a 60? Or, it's like, but also think about this. No matter how many times you look in the mirror and tell yourself you're beautiful, you could do that. Maybe you've been doing that earlier on tonight. You know, you look in the mirror and say you're beautiful, and you just say to yourself you're beautiful. You remind yourself how beautiful you are. When someone else looks at you and says you're beautiful, it feels different. You know, if you go out clubbing tonight and someone comes up to you and says you're beautiful, I don't think you'll say to them, I know, I was just telling myself that earlier on. I mean, so we're by nature social and relational beings, and we're vulnerable to the opinions of others, whether we like it or not. What we long for, what we really long for, is the respect and admiration of others, particularly those who we respect and admire. So in a place like Cambridge, where there's lots of bright and brilliant people around, lots of amazing sports people, amazing actors, amazing creative people, like, you know, just everywhere you look, when you feel a bit vulnerable, it's not just FOMO, it's not just not being invited to the party, it's not just being in the right social set, it's not just that that person doesn't like you back, it's not just, oh, I didn't get the top mark, it's not just, oh, I didn't get my blue, it's not just, oh, we didn't win the varsity match, it's not just this, it's not just that. It's almost like it shakes something at the very core of our identity, because we have built our identity so much on extrinsic sources of worth. And so with all the studies and the social dynamics and the pace of life, you can just kind of think, oh, I just can't do it anymore. So you knock back a few drinks at Revs and, you know, you kind of hook up with someone. You don't even think that's fit just because then you can get some kind of source of external validation. No, not you to that. No, a different crew. So, so what do? Where you look for your worth is one of the most important things about you. Yet we rarely articulate it even to ourselves. But Jesus told a story exactly about this question. So I'm going to read you a little story from the Bible. I worked as a criminal barrister for a number of years. And I represented hundreds, probably over 1,000 people accused of criminal offenses. And so I represented, probably many hundred people accused of crimes. And it's great that some of you have come out tonight. And every day for years, I was looking at the evidence about the events. And if you do nothing else this week, can I encourage you to read one of the eyewitness accounts about the life, the death, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Look at the eyewitness evidence for yourself and see what you think. A friend of mine, a guy called Earl, was given a Bible by a friend. And he quite liked it because he worked out that Bible paper is very similar to Rizla paper. And so he actually smoked his way through Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And then eventually he got to John and he started reading. And he found he quite liked Jesus and John. So I'm glad he started reading eventually. So you can even do that. I'll buy you a Bible and you can smoke your way through it. Now Jesus says this in Luke 15. Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." Then Jesus told them this parable. Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Doesn't he leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? And when he finds it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. Then he calls his friends and neighbors together and says, "Rejoice with me, I found my lost sheep." I tell you that in the same way, there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous people who don't need to repent. What's interesting I find in this story is that those who are drawn to Jesus, those who are captivated by him, are those whose lives appeared to be on the outside obviously immoral. So tax collectors, those who are collaborating with the Roman Empire, people who, sinners, and if you call someone a sinner, it's because their life is obviously externally immoral. And they were the people who were gathering around Jesus and leaning in to hear what he had to say. Something about Jesus, the way he lived his life, the way he spoke, was captivating to those people who society had written off, or those people society said were no good, or those people society said were living lives that were immoral. And yet they found something in Jesus that meant they wanted to come close. And yet the supposedly moral people who thought they had it all together, who thought they were living lives that were right, they were really offended by Jesus. Jesus welcomes these people. And he even sits and eats with them. And in response, Jesus tells them this story. And it seems simple, seems almost like a child's story, but I tell you it's anything but a child's story. It's deeply profound, it's highly provocative. Jesus says, you're upset about me going after the lost. You're upset about me about welcoming these people back. Let me tell you a story about a sheep that was lost and a shepherd that goes to find it. And all through the centuries, there had been an image of a sheep had been used in Scripture to describe the people God had called. And there was an image of bad shepherds who were those who neglected their responsibility as religious people to come alongside who desperately needed help, who'd kind of abused their power and taken advantage of the vulnerable. But there was also the promise of a good shepherd, God himself, who would come and receive his people. And in this story, Jesus takes all of the imagery of the good shepherd and he applies it to himself. And sometimes people ask, did Jesus ever claim to be God? Jesus said in John 10:30, he said, I am the Father of one. Why do you pick up stones to stone me? And they said, because you, a mere human being, claim to be God. Jesus' enemies, those who heard him speak, those who had no inclination to act in his favor or to view him favorably, said what is indisputable about Jesus is that he's claiming to be God. And that's an offensive thing and he deserved to die for it. They wanted to stone him. They were in no doubt about what he was claiming. And here we have a much subtler claim to be God, but it's still pretty shocking. Imagine one of you had 100 sheep and you lost one. That's quite a bold thing to say in Middle Eastern culture. In Middle Eastern culture, you wouldn't normally phrase things that way. You wouldn't even say like, I broke a glass. You would say, the glass fell from my hand. You put it in the passive so it doesn't sound like blame, because in an honor culture, blame is a really offensive thing. You wouldn't say, I lost a sheep, still less, you lost a sheep. You'd say the sheep wandered off. And Jesus says, suppose one of you moral people, you religious people lost a sheep. He's punchy and he's got their attention. And of course, we're intelligent human beings, we're in Cambridge, we'd never walk around and get lost because we're looking at the thing that was right in front of our faces. But that's what sheep do. They're just walking around and they're eating grass and they just get lost because they're looking for the next bit of grass. And I wonder if you've ever felt like that you're so focused on the immediacy of the next thing in your life that you're never quite sure how you ended up where you are. The next test, the next essay, the next supervision, the next assignment, the next relationship, the next internship, the next game, the next this, the next that. And then you wake up and you think, what was that? What's it all about? Am I just accumulating points on the board? Am I just accumulating things for LinkedIn? Am I just accumulating status to try and impress people that aren't even paying any attention to my life anyway? We can all feel a bit lost at times. But there's also a sense of feeling cosmically lost. That we've become separated from the one who thought us up, who knows you, who cares about you. And when a sheep gets lost, it's a shepherd's job to find it. And Jesus says does the shepherd not leave the 99 in the open country and go after the sheep? And you kind of think, well, no, not really. Why would it do that? Because you've just got to cut your losses. You can't just leave 99 sheep in the open country. They're going to get even more lost. They're going to get eaten by wolves. This is a stupid plan. Go after the one. No, get rid of the one and just keep on the 99. But there's something powerful about that. Jesus says the sheep is that valuable to the shepherd. It might be lost, but it's none of the value to the shepherd. It's still his sheep, and he will search for it until he finds it. Sometimes we think we're searching for God. But what if God is searching for you? Sometimes we think we're trying to work out if God exists, but what if God is reaching out to you? And when the shepherd finds the sheep, what does he do? It says, joyfully lifts it up and puts it on his shoulders. Why? Sheep are so terrified when they get lost, they just sit there and they go, meh, and that's an official impression, by the way. And so they just are incapacitated by their fear. The shepherd literally has to pick it up and take it home. And it can't rescue itself. It's the job of the shepherd. If the shepherd doesn't pick it up, there's no way of it getting home. And I find it interesting. It's such a provocative story. Because you've got the one sheep which has to be picked up and taken home, but then you've got 99 who at the end of the story are just out in the open field on their own. The 99 who have no need of repentance, who think they're okay, are left out in the open field. And it's not a cuddly little lamb. A sheep, anyone live on a farm? I don't want to out you. Oh my days, there is someone who actually lives on a farm. Sheep are heavy. They're heavy. Yeah. A sheep weighs about 80 to 100 kilograms, which I know some of you squat that before breakfast. But I know, It's a lot. It's more than me, significantly more than me. You imagine if I'm lying on the ground and you pick me up, you're not going to do it joyfully. And you have to put it, he puts it on his shoulders. You have to put it on your shoulders. Only way to carry something that heavy for that long. Joyfully, probably not. Does it sound easy? No. Because there's a cost to the rescue, not for the person being rescued, but for the rescuer. The good shepherd bears the cost, takes the risk, carries the burden, puts himself in harm's way, and he does it joyfully. And the only way to carry that sort of weight is on your shoulders. And it's interesting, in the early church, they found the idea of Jesus dying on a cross so offensive that some of the earliest churches that were built, instead of like a cross here, they would have an image of a shepherd holding a sheep. Because this is Jesus saying, I'm going to come and I'm going to rescue those who know they need rescuing. And I'm going to pick them up and I'm going to pay the price on the cross and I'm going to win them for God. You know, Isaiah says, we all like sheep have gone astray. And it's almost like there's a barrier between us and God. Imagine this hand represents you. We all like sheep has gone astray. Each of us has turned to our own way. There's a barrier that stops us from connecting with God. It's the things we do wrong, our sin, our mistakes, our failure. And we just know, people told me for years, Steve, it's fine, don't worry about it, it's no big deal. You do you, it's all subjective anyway. You live a pretty good life, you don't have to worry about it. But I knew there was something that needed to be atoned for. I knew that I needed forgiveness and I couldn't provide it myself. I knew that something wasn't right and it needed to be made right. I knew I didn't feel free and I didn't feel right. We all like sheep have gone astray. Each of us has turned to our own way. And then it says this, the Lord has laid on him, on Jesus, the iniquity of us all. And what does that do? That leaves us free to have a relationship with God. The Son of God loves you and gave himself for you. Jesus knows you to the bottom of your soul. All of your good, all that you're proud of and push to the surface and try and impress people with, all of the not so good, all that maybe you're a little bit ashamed of and try and bury and hide. Jesus knows you to the bottom of your soul, and yet he loves you to the sky. And he was willing to pay any price, bet any cost, shed his blood on the cross in order to win you for God. And when I realized that, when I trusted that, it gave me a peace in the storms of life. It gave me a joy which survived disappointment and regret. It gave me a hope that was unquenchable and a love that was not unconditional and not conditional on my achievements. It became the foundation of my value and my worth. Suddenly my identity wasn't up for grabs because it wasn't external or internal, it was eternal. And I found that then provided a sure footing. I thought if I took a step towards Jesus, if I placed my trust in him, then I would have to give up all the fun things in my life. I thought, it's true, it's probably right, it's going to be a miserable life though. Oh well, let's suck it up. No, it's the opposite. I had to give up nothing of true value. And everything good in my life, it kind of flourished in a whole new way. I found that, success I enjoyed more because my identity wasn't founded on it. Relationships were more flourishing because I wasn't trying to prove myself. I was a better student, better barrister because I wasn't trying to fix my identity to whether I won or lost that day. Actually, my achievements and my relationships became more fulfilling because they didn't have to bear the weight of my value. And my value is rooted elsewhere. Most of us spend most of our lives trying to win the admiration and approval of others. But if what Jesus is saying is true, our worth is not subjective. It doesn't fluctuate through your life. It's not conditional on your perfect performance. It's not subject to the changing opinions of your friends, your enemies, your ex. You just need to know you need a rescuer. You might have made mistakes. You might have done things you regret. So have I. I'm far from perfect, but I know this. My worth is based on the fact that Jesus, the Son of God, loves me and gave himself for me. And I only have to look at the cross to see my true worth. So how do you respond to that? Well, it's interesting, when the sheep gets home, there's a huge party. And because the shepherd has saved the sheep. Jesus says, in the same way, there's more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents, who knows they need to turn to God, than over 99 people who think they're living great lives and they've got no need. But what does the sheep do to repent? Can't do much. It just lets itself be found by the shepherd. It's the shepherd who searches. It's the shepherd who finds. It's the shepherd who bears the burden. It's the shepherd who pays the price and carries home. When Jesus lived a life of stunning beauty. He comforts the disturbed. He disturbs the comfortable. He lifts up the lowly. He challenges the high. He shields the vulnerable and he unsettles the powerful. He lived a life of stunning beauty. He died a death of extraordinary sacrifice to win you for God. And you can encounter him. And it's in a relationship with Jesus that you find life, and life in all its fullness. You might be here tonight and you're like, I'm really disappointed I came. And if that's you, I'm so sorry. Please have more ice cream. And I'll buy you another ice cream if I have to make up to you. But we're so grateful you're here. And I'd encourage you to keep coming. You might be here tonight and you're like, yeah, I'm glad I'm here, but this is nonsense. Absolute nonsense. And if that's how you feel, I'm delighted you're here. And would love to hear more. There's going to be events all through this week. It's a great space to work out what you feel about this stuff. You might be here and you're like, it's interesting, but I'd like to hear more. We'd love to give you a copy of Luke's Gospel tonight, our gift to you. And if you want to go further than that, I'll buy you a Bible, or someone will. And we'd love to buy you a Bible. You know, this is a great week to look at the eyewitness evidence. Just read through Luke's Gospel. You can do it in about an hour and a half. It doesn't take very long. And see for yourself what you think about the eyewitness evidence of Jesus. But it might be you're here tonight, and this is just a moment you'd like to take a moment to respond. So I wonder if we could just, maybe you'd like to bow your head, maybe close your eyes, and I'm just going to pray a little prayer of taking a step towards Jesus. And if you want, you can echo this prayer in the quietness of your heart. It's very simple. It just goes, thank you, sorry, please. Lord Jesus, thank you that you came for me. Thank you that you died for me. Thank you that you rose for me. Thank you that you love me. I'm sorry for the things I've got wrong. My mistakes, my failure, my sin. Thank you that because of your blood shed on the cross, I can know forgiveness. And I can approach God as a much-loved daughter, a much-loved son. And please, would you come into my life by your Spirit and lead me on into the life you've created me to lead, that I might know the true value of how you see me and the worth your love gives me. And that will be the foundation of all that goes on from this place forward. Amen. Amen. Thank you so much for listening, and maybe see you tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Stephen, for that. That was really interesting.
Yeah, so after that incredible talk, if anything that Stephen has said has inspired you tonight, there is so much opportunity to, hear more about Christianity, about the Bible, and about, any of these beliefs, including the rest of this week, which there should be flyers on your tables, which include all of the events that we're running throughout the week. The next one will be next lunchtime, which we'll be discussing the search for God, does science help? And in addition to this, there is also an incredible bookstall at the back. All of the books here are free, so please do go over and have a look at those.
One of the books you might see is called Uncover Luke. It's a biography of Jesus' life, and we've got a quick video about it.
Material for Jesus' life. Have you made space in your life for God to speak to you? Have you looked at the source material for Jesus' life? Have you allowed Jesus to define himself to you? Jesus is one of history's most influential people. Luke's gospel is one of the earliest records of his life. Even if you aren't religious or the Bible feels uncomfortable, Luke was written for you. Uncover Luke is an invite to explore Jesus without pressure, awkwardness, or pretending. Just real conversations, honest questions, and space to think for yourself. Over 6 sessions, you'll read Luke's gospel with a friend, over a drink, or a meal, and see what Jesus actually said and did. Christians believe God speaks through his word. We invite you to experience this for yourself. Big questions, real life, open discussion. You don't need all the answers. Whether spiritual, skeptical, or somewhere in between, Uncover Luke is a space to explore Jesus. Why not open Uncover Luke now and ask someone to discover more with you?
Yeah, so as you just saw in this video, Uncover Luke is a biography of Jesus' life that we really encourage you to, have a read, and there's plenty of copies for you to grab. Now this brings pretty much the evening to a close. There's going to be loads of time for you to discuss. We're even ahead of schedule due to some great timings from us. We really hope that you've enjoyed this evening. There is also loads of jacks left, so please do grab some more to facilitate your discussions. And thank you so much again for coming. It's so nice to have you.